you guys are hearing people say, what's this election about? I'm not really paying attention. What are the big issues here? Is there an appetite for change, this kind of thing? Michelle, you've been in politics for a while. What do you think is happening out there?
Across political stripes on the door in my riding, the question is why the Alberta economy and the systemic loss of tens of thousands of jobs isn't lighting everyone's hair on fire across the country. I think that there's a sense that when parties call the jobs that we have here dirty and talk about phasing out one of the primary industries in Canada and obfuscating on the importance of energy infrastructure, again, it's almost become a nonpartisan issue. People don't understand why we're talking about the things that you just spent, frankly, 15 minutes on the front end of this show talking about and not talking about this. I get calls every day into my campaign office about the human reality and cost of being out of work for, frankly, a lot of political decisions. And I'm sick of it. And the people in my riding are sick of it. If we don't see change, or if we don't see political leadership on building out Canada's energy infrastructure and Canada's natural resources, I'm not sure what happens to this province. I'm going to be very blunt with you. And I cannot believe that we are not having a discussion about this every day on every show, because it's real and it threatens the unity of our country. If you're in Etobicoke, you're in Digby, Nova Scotia, you've got to wake up to this reality. And I'm very frustrated, as are the people in my community. And it is the number one issue on my doors.
Angela, what are you hearing where you are in the country?
Well, I'm hearing a lot about the cost of housing. Actually, people are really worried because rent costs and buying houses are more expensive than wages and pensions aren't keeping up. So I'm hearing from a lot of people that are struggling to make ends meet and that are really frustrated with leaders that aren't listening to them and aren't putting their priorities first. So they're frustrated because they've heard the same story from the Liberals and from the Conservatives. They've heard corporate welfare from both of them. They've heard excuses about why we can't get clean water to First Nations reserves from both of them. They've heard the same old story over and over again, and they're starting to really get frustrated and look for change. There's a lot of appetite out there for something different.
And Marco, how about you? And I wonder whether people are getting tired of, as your colleagues are saying as well, the sort of the personalities here of the leaders, the mudslinging that goes on, or the brown face and black face story, and now it's the citizenship with Andrew Scheer's story, as opposed to policy, as opposed to how can I manage my family's budget, how can I afford my house, all these kind of things that are much more close to people, close to the voters in your riding and in ridings across the country.
Well, I've knocked thousands of doors, and we are talking about affordability and the way that the Liberal government has invested in people at every stage in life. For young people, doubling scholarships and grants and giving debt forgiveness as they transition to a career. For young families through the Canada Child Benefit Plan, and building retirement security, as well as introducing a national housing strategy, which will help bridge some financing for people who are trying to buy that first home. But the single most pressing issue that I'm hearing in my riding is about climate change. And here we have a government with a proven track record that embraces the evidence that we have to take decisive action by putting a price on pollution, by actually leveraging the economic opportunities that are there to create new jobs, and contrast that to the Conservative government, who, and I'm not speaking for Michelle, but some of her colleagues who still think that climate change is a hoax.
All right, Michelle, let me get it back to you as well. And at the beginning, we were talking a little bit about the issue of minority, majority government. I mean, this is a situation the Conservatives were in back in 2006 and the Liberals were in 2004. What's your read on what we're seeing out there? I mean, if that were to happen, how do you think that might play out?
Well, I'll give you the view from Calgary, Todd. Given that all the parties on the left, and we're not here to debate this policy, but it's the reality. Their position is to phase out Canada's energy sector and to prevent oil from coming out of the ground over the long term. So if we are in a situation where we see anything other than a majority Conservative government, it's over for my province. That's how people see it. So unless the parties on the left start waking up to the reality that the energy sector in Canada promotes jobs, growth, builds hospitals, provides state-run daycare in Quebec, we're going to have a real problem here. I'm so furious that we're at this point in the campaign and the Alberta economy, it's just like, oh, it's some flippant issue. This is the heart of the Canadian economy. And I'm not even going to speculate on a minority government because I'm going to put everything that I have on the table for the people in my community, going coast to coast to say, look, you have to care about Alberta and you have to care about the people in my community. Full stop.
It is interesting as well, Angela, because the Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, who Michelle knows, is in Ontario today campaigning on behalf of Andrew Scheer and the Conservatives as well. We actually had Brad Wall on the show earlier this week, former Premier of Saskatchewan, who also raised the issue of a Liberal NDP coalition and what that would do to Alberta and Saskatchewan and what that would do to the country as well. Are you at all worried about what might happen if it ends up being a Liberal minority government supported by Jagmeet Singh and the NDP for national unity, let's say?
No, of course not. So I have lots of family. I'm actually from Saskatchewan originally, and I have family that work in the oil sands. And Michelle's picture is a little bit hyperbolic, let me say.
It's not.
What people in Alberta would get
here.
is actual investment in the people who live in Alberta. I think, like, one of the
Your
first
party
things
leader
that Jason
said we
Kenney
should
did,
be importing more Saudi oil.
Michelle, come on. Okay.
Well,
so
you
the
just
first
called
thing
me
that Jason Kenney
hyperbolic,
did
and you
was
don't live
provide.
here.
Michelle, can you let me finish, please? That's very rude. I have a point. One of the first things that Jason Kenney did was cut taxes for corporations. He provided a huge tax cut to the wealthiest people that provided no return for regular Albertans. And he's cutting classrooms, he's cutting healthcare, he's doing everything in Alberta that Doug Ford is doing here, which is terrible for the economy. What Rachel Notley did when she was the Premier was she recognized the reality
chased away
that
investment
fossil fuels are not going to be what propels our economy in the future. And so we need to start building an economy of the future for the people in Alberta. And she started doing that. She started providing alternative jobs. She started giving
like what?
Regional economic development funds to communities like in Hannah. We had the Just Transition Task Force that visited communities and talked about what they needed
and how many jobs
in order to
create?
have a prosperous. Michelle, this is absurd.
It is absurd
I'm not
what
running
you're saying,
against
because
you.
there's a lot of people
You're
out of
being
work
absurd.
in my province.
I understand that, but do you know that your province still has a higher GDP per capita than Nova Scotia's, and you're expecting people in Digby, Nova Scotia to feel sorry for you?
All right,
but we give equalization payments to the rest of the country. And I do want people to recognize the downturn in our economy. What you're saying is entitled and is against national unity.
We want to provide a solution for Alberta. We want to provide a real solution
what you're saying
for
is
Albertans that will provide them good jobs. My brother-in-law that works in the oil sands would rather work in a clean job. No, I don't. No, I don't. I'm saying that they're carbon intensive,
jobs dirty,
and we can't continue to do those jobs.
But we need carbon.
We have to provide
we still
a new
need
economy.
Carbon. Why aren't we using
Michelle,
Canadian
you're
carbon?
hurting them by refusing to recognize that the economy is changing. No. Michelle, the economy is changing.
We still
have
need
to change with
we still need carbon.
We can't stick our heads in the sand and ignore it. And we will still have carbon, Michelle.
Carbon. So why would we bring in more Saudi or Venezuela?
So we still have carbon.
Your party leader said that we should be importing more Saudi oil.
Michelle,
all right.
I don't even know what your name is.
I'm just going to jump in here because I just want to give.
This isn't productive. You're just
give
every
Marco,
time you talk, you're talking over top of me.
I want to give Marco Mendicino a chance to just weigh in here as well, Marco, before we go. Your read on the potential, anyway, of a coalition government, be it Conservative and another party, be it Liberal and another party.
Well, first and foremost, I'm focused on the people in my riding and getting reelected in Eglinton Lawrence, and it's a great privilege to represent them, and I know that all of my colleagues across the country feel the same way. Look, we've got a strong record that we're running on. Over 1 million jobs created in the last 4 years. We've stabilized trade relations with all of our partners, including most especially the United States. We got the steel and aluminum tariffs lifted, and we've got an ambitious and a serious plan when it comes to climate change. I'm confident about the future. I'm confident about leading us into the next mandate. And we know that we've still got 16 days to get there. And yes, obviously campaigns can be intense, but I'm looking forward to continuing to serve the good people of Eglinton Lawrence. difference.
Well, listen, I have a lot of respect for all three of you because I know campaigns can be very difficult and they are a real slog. And I want to thank all three of you for taking the time to get to our studios and come on CTV tonight.